All right, so we are on air now, and I'm so excited. This is our Rio Teach Like a Pirate Book Club meeting number 2, and we have some cool people with us. You guys know me, Elise Legaspi, 3rd grade, Rio del Norte. But I do have a couple of people to introduce, and actually I'm going to have our teachers that are joining us. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Dave, why don't you go for it? Introduce yourself.
I'm Dave Romano. I also teach 3rd grade at Rio del Norte with Elise. This will be my 2nd year going at Rio del Norte. My last year was my 1st year in the Rio district.
Awesome. Sonia?
I teach 1st grade at Rio del Norte, and I usually taught in the primary grades, kindergarten for 17 years, and 1st grade for 3 years.
Awesome. And we have a really, really special guest with us. I'm so beyond excited. His name is Matt Miller, and the power of Twitter, let me tell you, the power of Twitter, absolutely awesome. He wrote the book, Ditch That Textbook. I absolutely love it. Oh, look it. All right. And I think what drew me was the title. I absolutely think it was like, okay, I have to read that. If it's called Ditch That Textbook, I need to read it. So we have the author Matt Miller joining us. Say hello, please.
Hello, hello. I am so excited to be here with all of you. I am in Lafayette, Indiana right now. If you've ever heard of Purdue University, this is the home of that. And I am here doing a little conference. I am an 11-year high school Spanish teacher at a little bitty school in rural Indiana, and I am also a huge Teach Like a Pirate fan. I got this very copy of Teach Like a Pirate last September for my birthday. Actually asked for that and got it and have torn through it. And if you could see the details of this, I mean, the little watermark stains on the side and the crinkled corners and everything. I keep this thing in my backpack and refer to it for classes and for professional development and all of that. So I am a huge, huge fan. I'm excited to hear that you guys are going through that.
Awesome. Yep. I am so glad you're here. I'm so excited. We have, like I was telling you a few minutes ago, we have awesome teachers. We have 37 of our teachers who have agreed to read this book over the summer and then just kind of hang out. And most of them watched our first episode once it got uploaded into YouTube. But I also have a spreadsheet that I'll share with everybody at the end. And you too, Matt, I would absolutely love if you would contribute stuff to our spreadsheet. There's like a tab for each meeting, and I'm hoping that everybody will just add a couple of ideas, and then we have kind of a cool resource that everybody can hang on to once it's all done and once it's all over. So absolutely we'll share that with you, and would love for you to contribute to that too. Well, let's see. Give us a absolute selfish plug for your book.
Okay, well, I can probably do that. So it is obviously called Ditch That Textbook. What it isn't, I should say first, is it's not a big long book about why textbooks are evil or are horrible or why you should totally quit using them. What it also isn't is a step-by-step guide on how to teach without your textbooks. But more what it is it talks about practical things that you can do in your classroom to teach without your textbooks a little bit more. I just kind of feel like in the 21st century now, in this sort of internet age where we've got all this technology and the web available to us, that sometimes getting outside of the textbooks, we can just do so much better than sticking inside of that one static book. And so it gives you some practical ideas of how to teach more paperlessly, how to infuse creativity, get your classes engaged. But there's also a big part of it that talks about ditching those kind of textbook mindsets about education. Just because education has changed, I mean, an awful lot in the last decade, heck, in the last couple of years. And with it changing so quickly, we just can't continue to do education the way that we have before. I mean, it's becoming less and less relevant to kids' lives. And if we really want to prepare them for the future that they're going to have, then we've got to do things differently and we've got to change things up. So our parents and our grandparents' education just is not going to serve these kids anymore. And so it talks about that, gives some ideas for why we should go digital, and also how you can own your curriculum with these ideas. So that's kind of my plug for the book.
There you go. Had to let you do that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And so I think one of the things that really just made me think of, it just really meshed with our Teach Like a Pirate, at least especially what the chapters we're talking about today. We're talking about the Ask and Analyze, the Transformation, and the Enthusiasm chapters. And especially the Ask and Answer. There was part of the Teach Like a Pirate book that just really went with a quote from your book, and I think I even tweeted that quote out. And it's the quote is, "I believe one of our most important roles might not be to answer questions, but helping students discover the right questions and showing them where and how to find the answers themselves." I mean,
Right.
That just goes with exactly what you just got through saying, and I think it's so important to not teach kids stuff anymore, but to teach them to find their passion and to learn and self-direct. And what is it that you want to know? Well, let's figure out how to find that out.
Yeah, I think we've kind of got to change the way that we do things whenever kids come to class with a device in their pocket that basically allows them to come up with all of that lower level depth of knowledge, lower level Bloom's taxonomy, the answers to all of those things. Whenever they come equipped with that, and that's not going anywhere. The internet isn't a fad, and all these devices aren't a fad. They're not going anywhere. And so with that available, then the premium is not so much on the information. Because before, teachers were kind of like the gatekeepers to information, weren't they? You came into their classroom and they stood at the front, and I think I even talk in my book about this professor I used to have that had these like yellowed sheets of notes that he had been referring to for like 20 years, and he got out and he got his briefcase out and he pulled his notes out and he laid them out on his desk and he just read from his notes. And it was the same thing he had to have done for 10, 15, 20 or more years. And those days are over. And so when information isn't at a premium anymore, then what becomes more important is what we do with the information, right? Is the curation factor. If we have all of this information available to us, then how can we organize it? How can we synthesize it? And then, of course, the questions become really big, too. The questions of, what is it that you want to know? What is it that you're going to do now that you have that information? How can you change your life? How can you change other people's lives with that? I think those questions become so much more relevant than, give me the definition of this word or what's the capital of this country.
Exactly. And then it something that seems to be, I'm not quite sure why, dawning on me at this particular moment with this kind of book club process is, we teachers always talk about, what are we going to do with our students? How are we going to get them to ask the questions and answer and find and follow these? But we need to ask ourselves those same questions, as teachers. And that goes right along with that chapter, the Ask and Analyze, is, it's asking questions of ourselves. What kinds of questions can we ask that will start our thought processes going to get us away from the, textbook traditional ways of teaching and trying to get them into things that Dave Burgess had talked about in the chapter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've found in my own classes at least, and I think a lot of people can sympathize with this, that our schools have kind of built this culture of I'll do whatever it is that the teacher asks me to do. It's like I found that if I've tried to break out of that and give them freedom and just say, hey, go do something cool with what we're studying, then you'll have some kids that will come back to you and will almost be like, will you just give me a worksheet? Just give me a worksheet so I can do that and I can be done with it. And so what I think, and I write about this in the book a little bit, I kind of compare it to the idea of renters versus owners, because my wife and I have owned a rental house before. And so it was the craziest thing. We fix up this rental house, and we finish the floors and we paint the walls and we put in new kitchen cabinets, and then we let perfect strangers come into it. And the strangest thing happens. They come into that new house, or that old house with a couple new things in it, and they don't do anything else to fix it up, right? Okay, that's not so strange, really. But that's because they're renters, because they don't have the ownership factor of my house. And so they're not doing those long-term things. And I think that whenever kids are in that mentality of, I'll just do whatever the teacher wants me to do, they're renters. And what we really want are owners, I think, the ones who will sign the deed to their own education, who will actually buy into the concepts that are going to help them into the future. And so when they own it, they see what that's going to be worth in the future, and then they're willing to make those investments because they see the future in it. So, and it's hard to shift that culture, I found. And I kind of compare being able to shift that culture to like moving a great big rock. I mean, imagine like this enormous boulder, and you start leaning on it and start pushing it, trying to move it little by little, and you might just barely get it to nudge. And then once you've got it to nudge, if you keep pushing, you get a little bit more progress and a little bit more progress until it finally starts to roll, and then it starts rolling down the hill. And I think if we want to get from that renter concept over to the owner concept, it's going to take a lot of pushing at first. And sometimes you're not going to see a whole lot of results. But if we keep pushing and we keep being persistent, eventually that boulder starts to roll. So, sorry, I think you got me like preaching there. I was like up on my soapbox. So.
I love it. No, I love it. Absolutely. I love, oh my gosh. You and I could talk forever.
Uh-huh.
And then I've got the two wonderful people that I have joining me. I kind of picked them because they both are, I mean, it's very interesting. You know, Dave is on my third grade team at my school, and a relatively, newbie as far as teaching goes. But I mean, being last year, his first year, through his own classroom, the boss kind of thing, he really did pull in a lot of creative things and a lot of things that go along with ditching the textbook, so to speak, and a lot of the out-of-the-box stuff that we're reading about in TLAP. Dave, share some of that stuff, something that something you noticed as far as, that wasn't traditional, or that once you kind of let the kids go, then things...
Probably the best one I could come up with is the Minecraft. I mean, the second I learned about that and getting Minecraft in the classroom, I was able to take math concepts, history concepts, all these concepts, and let them go with it for a while. And then all of a sudden they started coming in and saying, well, when we were doing math, it's like, okay, build me this house, so you got to be able, you only have 100 bricks, figure it out. And all of a sudden now they're doing multiplication because they're trying to figure out, and they're doing area, they're trying to figure out how can I build this. And one of the things I did with them is I said, go measure the class and rebuild it. And I said, you have to ask me for the materials. So they had to then think real world context of the materials. Well, what wood is this made out of? What is this? Where can I find these things? And that kind of was nice because in the textbook it says, okay, here's area, length times width. There you go. Measure a table, and that's how big it is. But being able to bring like Minecraft into the classroom and let them recreate something, that's completely translatable to future skills that they're going to need. Being able to recreate a classroom in a computer using bricks is just like back in the day when I used to build stuff out of Legos. And it's that same concept of figuring out, well, if I need it to be 5 feet, one Lego equals a foot, there's 5 Legos in a row. They had to do that same thing with the bricks, and that translates right over to their career skills down the line. And I wasn't giving them the answer. I didn't say, you need this wood, you need this. I said, tell me what you want. And they had to figure it out from there. And that was one of those times where I kind of just said, I know my concept, I know what I want them to do, but I want them to try to figure something out and use everything.
Love it. And Sonia, as far as first grade, what are some things that you noticed in first grade?
Well, I think what's refreshing about first grade is that they're not quite used to the whole system and the routine, and they're really still flexible. I think they accept whatever lessons or whatever direction we're going in, and they're not quite stuck in a routine. So I love the fact that we've tossed out scripted reading programs and all those scripted programs that are just gone pretty much. Well, we kind of are still tied down to them, but I think we have more flexibility to use other things in our district, especially. So not once did I use, one of the math worksheets that are given to us. I think we had a blank journal. We did problem solving together, whole group, small groups. So I love the fact that I can teach math the way it should be. Like, just hands-on, manipulatives, and being able to explore and solve problems each day.
Yeah, and your room is awesome. You always do wonderful stuff with your, always awesome. So kind of a quick little commercial break. If you are a viewer, if you're watching, you can submit questions. We have wonderful Matt Miller, the author of Ditch That Textbook, on with us if you've just joined us. And if you're watching, up at the very top, there will be a little waffle symbol, like, the little squares. You click on that, and then if you click on Q&A, it will give you a little box where you can type in a question, and we can all see the question. So if you have a question for anybody, enter it in there, and I will try. I'm still kind of new at this, so I will try to keep checking on that Q&A box to see if there's any questions that pop up there. One of the things I really am really dying to talk to you about, Matt, is that whole creative process that is in the Ask and Analyze chapter of TLAP. It really talks about creativity and how, and Dave Burgess tells the story about how someone tells him, well, you're creative, as far as it's easy for you. Yeah, those 6 words. It's easy for you. You're creative. And there's a lot of those things of getting us to reflect and ask those kinds of questions of ourselves that really help that creative process. And you obviously are an extremely creative person just from looking at your website, something that I've just kind of started to get really interested in, and something that I really want to try to implement in my classroom is sketchnoting.
Oh, yes.
How much do you love Periscope? Oh my gosh.
That was fun, yes.
Oh my God, I just downloaded that app like a week ago, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago or something. It's ridiculous. Oh my gosh, I'm watching some guy today. He's in Australia, and he's got his Periscope thing going. And he's surfing, and he's, watching as they're oh my gosh!
Wow, that's
cool. You a few days ago doing your little sketchnoting thing. So talk a little bit about, that whole creativity thing.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And I totally agree with Dave on this whole creativity thing, in that there are not just creative people. That creativity, and just like he says, creativity is it's almost like a skill, It's not that you have you're blessed with this certain amount of creativity the day that you were born, and then that's all the creativity that you have. The process of doing sketch notes for me has sort of opened me up to that, but really just teaching in general opens me up to that. And one thing that I really love that Dave says in Teach Like a Pirate is that you've constantly got to ask yourself questions that sort of drive your creativity. Just constantly kind of push yourself on your creativity just in general to really build that skill and to get more of it. Is that a cat? That's awesome.
That is my cat.
Very good. On my screen, Sonia, you were really big on my screen there, and then all of a sudden there's this big furry thing. It was hilarious.
Very social.
I love it. That's cool. So anyway, for me in the classroom, it kind of looks like this. It's like I'm looking at this content that we want to go over in class. And so for me with Spanish, a lot of times, and by the way, I wanted to say this earlier, you guys are all from Rio del Norte, or at least a couple of you are. I wanted to say, by way of what I teach, I am one of the ones who actually can tell you what Rio del Norte actually means. I don't know what that gets me, but just thought I'd throw that in there.
At least one brownie point.
Sure, yeah, exactly. So anyway, in my Spanish class, what that looks like is, I've got this content, and I'm going, okay, here's the typical way, the textbook way, if you will, of how we do this, but what else could I do? And then I start asking myself these questions and analyzing. And sometimes I will actually pull this book out and start going through the hooks. The hooks are my favorite part of the book, and I use it as just basically as a reference, almost like a reference book just sitting there on my desk. And so I'll think, okay, what is it that the kids are kind of into right now? Are there any celebrities I could pull into a story that I could tell using these things in Spanish? Or could we go someplace, or could we dress up as something, or could, and I just start asking and analyzing. And the thing that I think drives people away from doing this sometimes is that it's not easy, and there's no certainty to it. If we just continue to teach the way that we've always taught, if you've ever heard of Don Wettrick, he's the one who takes Genius Hour and makes it like Genius Class. He calls it Innovations Class. And so kids in his classes are pursuing their passions. And he wrote a book about it. And in the book, he says, it's okay if you teach for 20 years, but please do not teach the same year 20 times. And so for me, it would be so easy to continue to teach that same year 20 times because there's certainty to it, because I already sort of know how the kids are going to react to it. But when I start to push myself a little bit and I think, well, could we do it differently? Could we use this tech tool? Or could we use this teach like a pirate hook? And then I don't know how it's going to go exactly. And I think that's one of the things that really scares people about branching out into creativity, is that they don't know how it's going to go. They don't know how the kids are going to react to it, or if it's going to blow up in their face. But here's the thing. I've found that whenever things blow up in my face, it kind of gives a shared experience that I can share with my kids. And the second part about it is that they really appreciate that I'm willing to try something different in the first place. Because, if you were to follow a lot of the kids around in my high school, and this is not a knock against my high school, this is high schools all over the place, it's going to be a lot of sitting and listening and working quietly and listening to the teacher and writing things down on paper so that they can turn it in that aren't relevant to their lives. And by golly, if you try to break out of that and just do something different, even if it's a total flop, I think the kids are really going to appreciate you. So coming back to that idea of creativity being a skill, I suggest that even if you don't know how it's going to go, just jump out there and give it a shot,
I don't know about you and Sonia and Dave, I love that this book really gives you permission to fail.
Yes.
And I think that's something we also need to give our students as well, because like you said, they walk into us with this, in general, like I said, no disrespect, but in general, they walk in with, okay, just tell me what to do. Where do I sit? Where do you want me to sit? Where's my spot? When can I sharpen my pencil? Give me the paper. They walk in with this, and then to be able to give them permission to try and fail, and then when you do it as a teacher, I really think they pick up on that. That's just something that they see, and they think, oh, okay, well, that's how this class is going to operate. That's what we're going to do.
I think it opens up that teachable moments too, because that failure, it can be turned around. And he talks about later, changing the situation, like when his son got the necklace or the bracelet on the game, and turned it into pirate treasure. And
yes.
And that whole idea of, okay, a student failed, but how can we then flip that? And if we do it ourselves, I feel that there's times, even this past year, like I failed, I bombed, but then I looked and go, okay, well, I just found the way not to do it. Now I can find the way to do it. And I think if we can show our students that, and tell them, you didn't fail, you just found the way that it doesn't work, now let's find the way it does work. And it's not really a failure, it's just an attempt. I always think back to it's always misquoted, but about Thomas Edison failing at making the light bulb. He didn't fail 50 times making the light bulb. He just found 50 ways not to make it. He had to wait till he found the right way to make it, or a way to make it. And he wasn't the first or last person to do it. So I think that kind of, that's what I like about this book. The failure, it's not failure. It's really just, okay, we tried it. Didn't work. Let's try something else. You're not really failing like you lost a race. You're failing in that you did something, didn't work, so find another way to do it.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think that technology companies have it right on that. And sometimes, and David, I think you're right on it with this, it's not so much failure as it is iterating. That term iteration, which suggests, I know with some tech companies, they like to say fail fast. You know, it's like get an idea out there, not like throwing something out there that hasn't been planned at all, but get an idea out there, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. Let's improve upon it. Let's learn the lessons, just like you were talking about. Learn the lessons and move forward. And don't. It's only really failure when you give up and you don't try to go on. You know.
I think
Absolutely.
I was going to say that I pretty much make it clear that we're all going to make mistakes in the class, and I make mistakes every day, and you know, I pretty much use their mistakes and our mistakes together as learning opportunities. How can we learn from this? And maybe even seeing it from someone else's perspective. Like maybe someone thought they were doing a math problem the wrong way, but really they did it the right way. They just followed different steps to get there. And so using, I try to present their learning experiences and different perspectives so that they don't think they're failing. They can see it from different people's perspectives. So one lesson that I teach is, okay, we're going to solve a problem, and 3 students are going to present it on a whiteboard, and they all get up in front, and these 3 students have solved it different ways. And I said, you know, it's okay. They did a great job. All 3 of them did a great job, and so they're really learning, like, oh, okay, the way I did it was fine, and it's acceptable, and that's pretty much how we start our year. Like, okay, you know, try whatever you can, and you know, if you fail, that's okay. But there are different ways to come to resolve an issue or to solve a problem.
I love it. I love it. So now a little bit back up just a tiny bit. In the Ask and Analyze chapter, he talks about a way to keep track of those creative ideas. An idea capture system is what he says. Something that I do and have done for quite a while is I have journals. And I have used journals for many years. As you can see, I went and found a little stack of them at home and took a picture of them today. You know, and in the journals, sometimes they're spiffy and sometimes they're just stuff written on a piece of paper. You know, they might have photos, they might have papers that I've taken from somewhere else, and I jotted an idea down and kind of stapled it into the little book. But there's lots of things that I do with these. Now, of course, I go digital, and I have basically a big giant Google Doc, and my phone is what I have with me. So if there's something that I'm thinking of, and I get an idea for something, I'll take a picture of it, and then I'll stick it in my Google Doc, and I'll sort of just keep going. What do you guys do? Sonia, what do you do as far as what kinds of things do you do to capture those ideas?
Oh gosh, we've used a lot of. Wait, I'm sorry, my daughter interrupted me, so I'm like trying to follow your question, what you just presented. So, sorry.
Those darn kids. And what do you do with ideas? What kind of a system do you have? What do you do so that you don't forget those ideas?
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, I've incorporated so many different things this year, like trying to use Padlet. If I had an idea, I would put it on my Padlet in a specific category. I think the best thing for me is journaling, and having a blog or something is a direction I'd like to go in, and just even if it's just for myself, I don't know. But I think so many times I come upon just a lesson that I really liked, and the way I presented it or something, and I forget to document it, just like he said in the book. Like, don't forget, pick the simplest thing to do, to record that. Yeah, this year was one of those years where I didn't record that much, and I wish I would have. But I did use Padlet. I used Pinterest. I took photos of things that I did, lots of charts, anchor charts, activities with students, and I think I mostly captured it on film. And I took photos, and so I have just I guess you could say, a collection of photos on my computer that I can go back and look at and say, hey, oh, that was a great lesson. But yes, the whole process, though, is what I need to remember. Like, how did we get to that point? So that's what I need to document more carefully.
There's so many things, I swear, that I have forgotten.
Yeah.
Just from having, that thought at 2 in the morning, because you always get them, and not writing it down, and of course go back to sleep and wake up and wait a minute, I know I had it was good, I don't remember, now it's gone. So Dave, what about you? What do you do?
I've done a little bit of everything. This year I started with a notebook, this ratty old dollar store notebook that I just had sitting in my bag in the middle of trainings, and I'd write stuff down, and then about halfway through I switched over, and there's an app, it's Google Keep. And all it does, it's just like the notepad, and you can literally just create check-off lists and to-dos, and you can put reminders and everything. So I found myself within conversations of other people just kind of whipping my phone out real quick and typing as fast as I could with my one thumb to kind of not stop the conversation, but write, even if it was just a keyword like look up this. And one thing I want to do this year is an idea actually Mr. Waltrip gave me, which was, record in the middle of the night when you're groggy, grab your phone or something and voice record your idea just real fast. And it was something he talked to me about in one of our in our meetings, and he just said, he's like, I used to sleep with a recorder by my bed, and I'm like, that's such a great idea, and I wish I used it this year, but it's something now I'm going to start thinking about, is just grab my phone, have a recording app, and just that real quick, half asleep, remember to look up this, and then just go back to sleep. And in the morning when I'm like, what was I thinking? And I wake up and now it's there and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So that's one way I think it, and kind of Dave Burgess has that idea with it, started with his note cards and stuff. In the digital age with that Google Keep, it's basically digital note cards and checklists for me to use. And if I don't like something, I can delete it later, or keep it as long as I want.
All right. And I know, and Mr. Miller, you are the king of sketchnoting. I'm so excited. I so want to start that with my kids. But in general, what do you do?
Oh, I've got lots of different things. By the way, Dave, you totally stole my idea that I was going to say. So, because I was going to talk about Google Keep too. That's been huge for me. So, yes, it is. It is awesome. I don't know why I hadn't heard about it. I finally found out about it, I think, in about November or so, and have been using it ever since. So, I'm going to try real quick. I've got my Google Keep up. I'm going to try to share my screen.
Cool.
I need to switch over here. That's actually Twitter. Here we go. This is what my Google Keep looks like. It is a huge mess, but there are ways to organize it. And so basically, this is what it looks like. It's like kind of like a bunch of all of these little sticky notes. And so what's nice about it is that, I mean, right up here, I can add a new note. I can turn it into a little checklist if I want to. And then I can actually put little check marks next to things. I can bring in pictures. I can change the color of it if I want to. I can add different people to it, like share it so that I'm not the only one on it. And I can also add a reminder. And what's kind of amazing about these reminders is that they can either be time-based, or if you have Google Keep on your phone, they can be GPS-based. So you could say, like, when I'm at the grocery store, pick up a dozen eggs, and then tag your grocery store on it. And so the next time you get to the grocery store, that reminder goes off that says to pick up a dozen eggs.
And that's actually how I started using it, was my
Really?
grocery list and things like that. And then I just realized it was such a good little tool.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so that is a big one for me. Now, as far as sketch notes, let's see. I was going to try here real quick. Okay, yeah, here are a couple of them. So this is like whenever I go to a conference. Let's see if this one will come up. Can you guys see that sketch note at least a little bit, even if it's small?
Yes.
Okay, here, I'm going to click through and try to make it a little bit bigger. So I was just at a conference recently. If you've ever heard of Alice Keeler, she does, yeah, she has so much wisdom on everything Google related, especially with Google Classroom. She did just recently write a book with Dave Burgess called 50 Things You Can Do with Google Classroom, and I was fortunate to get to meet her last week at a conference, and I got to sit in on this session called Using Google Docs in the Math Classroom. And so while she's talking, I'm sketching all these ideas out, and not all of them have little graphical things with them, but some of them do. And I found, for me at least, and I know with some of my students, sometimes my notes don't all go in a linear fashion, kind of like a regular lined sheet of paper would be. And so it's nice to be able to do that. And so especially whenever I'm at conferences, I like to be able to take notes like that. And then in addition to that, Google Docs is obviously big for me, just because I can write a document and then I can search for things inside of it. I can put them into folders, and I mean, it's just so easy to find. And then finally, whenever I find articles on the web that I want to hang on to, I use Pocket. And there are a couple of real easy ways that you can get things into your Pocket. For me, my web browser of choice is Google Chrome, and so there's a Chrome extension for Pocket. So all I have to do is click on this little button, and then that article is automatically dropped right into my Pocket for me to read later. So as far as keeping all of those things in one place, and then I still even do a little bit of what Dave talks about with having like a note card or something. Like I'll keep sticky notes in my backpack, and so if I'm at a conference or if I'm someplace, I'll just write that idea down. I even write on the back of my hand sometimes if I really need to remember something.
Oh yeah, all the time. I love it. Yeah, our district has been fortunate enough to have Alice come out and talk to our district 2 or 3
awesome.
times, 3 times I think. Yeah,
nice.
We love her. Oh my gosh. She's absolutely
she's
amazing.
Genius. Yeah. By the way, if you don't have her book, see, I got that one too.
I do. Yeah.
I've shown you 3 of the 4 books sitting next to me, and so now, while I've still got them sitting there, I also ought to recommend this one. This is another Dave Burgess publication. This one's Learn Like a Pirate, Giving Your Students Control of the Classroom. Okay, I'm done with my Dave Burgess consulting commercial.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think 5 of the books that I have sitting around waiting for me to read, 4 of them are from him, or from his publishing company. It's so exciting. So as you can tell, we have we have a group of enthusiastic people here. And since that last chapter was enthusiasm, I kind of wanted to end with that as far as what are some things that you are all enthusiastic about? What are some things that you're going to take from that enthusiasm? I love the whole fake it till you make it kind of part of the enthusiasm thing too, because it really works. You know, there's some mornings where I walk in and I think, oh gosh, there's no way. But then for some reason there's somebody, there's a kid, there's a colleague, there's somebody that just kind of gets me going, and then it works. And then I walk into the classroom and the kids, we kind of feed off each other. You know, if they're excited and willing to do things, then that keeps me going. And so I'm an absolute believer in the whole, enthusiasm thing as far as getting the kids to go with you and do what you need to do. So what are some things that you guys are enthusiastic about as we get ready to think about starting a new school year? Now I'm putting you on the spot. Sonia, is there anything you're excited about?
Well, I think this year brings some new changes with our class size reduction. We're going to have 24, so I'm kind of thinking about the layout of the classroom and just how we're going to run the classroom, just, stations and groups and collaborative activities. I think I love that chapter 2, he just talks about enthusiasm, and I I think about my kindergarten days, and I was teaching kindergarten. I was that magician in that book. He talks about the magician that just, he feels sorry for, that has to be at these children's parties. And I just think, teaching kindergarten, it's kind of like having a birthday party every day. You're just on. You have to be on. And it's the same way in first grade. You have to, from the moment you open that door, you have to be on. And it doesn't matter what is going to come at you that morning, you still have to be on. But so yes, enthusiasm is a big part of our day. And I think our whole first grade team and pretty much everyone at our school is pretty enthusiastic. I love, all the things that are happening at our school. And so I think our work environment is just booming with ideas, and I think it's great. I love our staff, and I feel fortunate to work with everyone.
Aw. How about you, Dave?
No, I can definitely, agree with Sonia on that. I mean, one thing I'm enthusiastic about is this is the first year I actually get to not have to move all my stuff back into a classroom for the past 3 years, either being at different schools or not knowing if I was going to have a job. So that's one of those things that I'm enthusiastic because I can actually hit the ground running for once and not be worrying about, okay, I got to get this out of storage and this. So, I mean, I can actually really put my energy into those first weeks and being enthusiastic for the kids. But I totally agree, with Burgess in that, like you said, there are days where you're not feeling it. You're just not going to feel it. But then if you don't bring it, the kids don't feel it. And I kind of relate it to me coaching high school football when I've come up against a game and I know we're going to lose. Like, there's no way we're winning this game. We're losing. But if I walk in with that attitude, the kids are going to be losing within the first second. But I always try to come in with all right, let's give it all we got, leave everything on the field, have fun, walk away proud, and then the kids play. And if we lose, we lose, but they're not upset about it. And it's the same idea in the classroom. If I walk in with a lesson like, oh, my God, this is going to be a horrible lesson, it's going to be a horrible lesson.
Yeah.
But if I walk in going, all right, let's have some fun with this, even if it's talking about the most boring, mundane thing of addition or whatever, but we have fun with it and I have fun with it, like he says, eventually you're just going to have fun. You fake it, and then all of a sudden you're actually enjoying what you're doing.
Okay, Matt, what about you?
That kind of makes me think of Dave's Railroads. If you've ever seen Dave talk, he says, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about that, and then he says it in his typical Dave Burgess voice. He's like, what I'm not passionate about is railroads. And so he's got to get himself all amped up to talk about railroads and everything. And so when we talk about, first of all, for me personally, this beginning of the year and kind of having a clean slate, that's something that always gets me excited, and I always brings my enthusiasm to the highest levels, I think, because we can start anything at the beginning of the year. That's really one of the gifts that educators have that I think a lot of people in other professions don't have, is that we get to hit the reset button once a year. And we have that time in between where we can separate ourselves from the previous year and then restart. And that's one of the big things for me. And whenever we were talking about the whole fake it till you make it thing, I want to share my screen real quick and show you this quote that it always makes me come back to. Can you guys see this page now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure how to pronounce this guy's name, but it looks like Haim Janot or something like that. And it says, I've come to a frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in my classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. That scares me to death, by the way.
Yeah.
I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child humanized or dehumanized. And I think when it comes to fake it until you make it, by golly, Sorry, I just went into the dark. Somebody closed the door. This is my cat moment, by the way. So,
keep going.
Yeah, but when it comes to this whole fake it till you make it, where if you're not feeling it, you gotta come up with it somewhere, because in all situations you are the determining element in the climate of your classroom. Oh, the light's back.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and so for me, it always comes back to that: is am I going to humanize or dehumanize, and all those things in that quote. And so I think that it's not just for ourselves, and it's not just for it's not a small issue, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that those decisions to put on the enthusiasm until you really feel it have everything to do with the climate of your classroom.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then when we talk about all of these things, a lot of these things that are not textbook and then are out of the box, and definitely TLAP and Dave Burgess is definitely out of the box, and you are too, Mr. Miller. But some of those things are scary as far as but back to the quote that you just showed, and there's a quote that's flying around the internet all over the place. But it goes back to, we can't keep doing things the way they have been done. We can't keep teaching old school, if you'll forgive the term, because we know that that's not what our kids need. We know we need to bring the enthusiasm. We know we need to ask the right questions. We know we need to inspire. And we can't stop ourselves, and the whole creativity as far as, that excuse that I'm not creative, which is an excuse, and it's basically an excuse to give up and to be mediocre. And we just can't do that. And so one of the things that I want to kind of end with is a quote that says, it's that, well, what if I fail? It's like, no, what if you fly? There is no true failing, except for like what you had just got through saying. The only failure is if you don't do anything and if you just kind of keep yourself in that same spot. So it boils right down to, we have to fly. We have to fly, and we have to try, and we have to put ourselves out there. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. We're almost up on an hour now, about 45 minutes. So thank you so much for joining us. Any last thoughts before I sort of let you go with a homework assignment? Any last thoughts, Dave?
No, not really. No, it's good. I'm glad I could make this one. Last one I was sitting on a plane, so I wasn't too happy to be flying. But
yeah. All you people that are on vacation, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sonia, how about you?
No, same here. I'm glad to make this one. I caught the last one, but I wasn't able to participate on my phone last time, so I'm glad I was here live and got to meet our guests.
Yes, I'm so excited, and thank you for coming. And anything else that you want to add?
I think that you guys are on the right track, and I think personally that if we can do more pirate, I think we're going to be in great shape. So as you go through this book, if you keep trying to think of ways that you can teach like a pirate, you'll be in great shape. Here, wait a second. I got to put the eye patch on too.
Oh,
Here
yes.
it comes.
Yes.
I don't know if the glasses are going to mess it up. Let's see. Nope, there's the eye patch.
There we go.
Nice.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Oh, that's even better. There you go. So again, I'm so honored that you agreed. It was one of those, hey, I'll just ask and see what happens, and I'm completely honored that you agreed to join us, Mr. Miller. And again,
I'm flattered that you guys would invite me, and this I can tell that there's a lot of good going on in these schools, and just from the folks that I've met here. So I really think you guys are on the right track, so keep up the good work.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, homework assignment. Everyone, whether you watch now with us live or whether you watch later, there is a homework assignment on the, if you go back to the schedule, the link is at the very bottom of that Google Doc, and I'll make sure to share that with you, Mr. Miller. But there's, go to the second tab that says Meeting 2, and there's a couple of questions. Things, I think one of the questions are, which of the pirate elements, you know, the P, the I, the R, which of those is something that you want to work on for the new school year? And then there's another question about what are some ways that you're going to try to get yourself past that I'm not creative thing, because we are all creative. We just need to ask the right questions of ourselves. So there is homework. Please share, please add stuff to the spreadsheet, because what was added on the first tab, and then if we just keep adding, it's going to be a really kind of a neat record and a neat resource for us all to have at the end of all of this. So again, thank you to my beautiful, wonderful colleagues at Rio Del Norte. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Sonia. And of course, thank you, Matt Miller. Yeah. Another plug, here you go. This is definitely one of those when we're all done with TLAP. All right. This is book 2. You have to go get this book. So thank you very much. Everybody say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. You guys are awesome.